welcome back to another book review. So today we are talking about The Complete Idiot's Guide to Buddhism, the 3rd edition, by Gary, and I think his last name is pronounced Gach. I could be wrong though. So this big old book is a crash course of sorts to Buddhism. It goes over the history, some of the basic beliefs, and then there's a few things to try at home. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 star. I really liked it. Now, this is one that takes a while. Even for me, this has taken me weeks to get through because it's so dense of information. And, you know, witchcraft books, I've read enough of them. I kind of know where the stuff is going to go, so it doesn't take as much brain power. Versus, I don't know a whole lot about Buddhism, so, like, I'm a beginner, and so it takes a little bit more time, and, like, it's just a lot. And I'm not the only one. Other people have said it's very dense. In a good way. It's a lot of information packed in here, but it's not going to be a quick read. It's not like a gentle, like, hold your hand and just, like, frolic through the fields. It's a really in-depth discussion on Buddhism, and it goes through a lot of the different tenets and a lot of the beliefs, and it really is quite in-depth. And honestly, I was a little, like, nervous going into A Complete Idiot's Guide, because sometimes they're not the most, like, spiritual books. They're kind of a little bit more casual and just, you know, it just has a different vibe than what you would expect. But the author actually did a really, really good job of presenting the information in a way that's easy to understand, but also in a way that, you know, the average person's going to be able to connect with. And it, again, it's just a good book. He's written it really well. I feel like it gives enough of a background where if you haven't ever learned anything about Buddhism, like, it's a good place to start. Which is who I would recommend this to if, like me, you're new to Buddhism. It's a fantastic place to start. It's, again, the history, so you kind of know, like, what it is. It talks about kind of how the premise of Buddhism kind of spread out and how it kind of has, I think there's like 4 main branches of it, but of course it's kind of like Christianity where it kind of just started to splinter and then just continued to go. And it talks a little bit about how it's changed as it come to the West, and specifically here in the US, how it's kind of adapted and changed. And also, like with Buddhism, you can easily fit it into other religions too. And so that's one of the things I really like about it, because as a witch, a lot of the things correlate with what we already do. Like, there's still the, like, cause and effect law of the universe, and it's kind of like karma, but not like official karma from, I think it's Hinduism is where it originates from. It's similar, but not quite. You're not quite, like, trying to live out, like, the punishments or the rewards of a previous lifetime. It's, like, in the moment things. Like, in this lifetime you have control over, which a lot of witches do. We also talk about that. And harm none, obviously. And, you know, it has a lot of the same things. Some are a little different, but I don't know. It's one of those that, like, with Buddhism, a lot of the books have talked about how it doesn't have to be a religion, and it isn't a religion. It's more of a philosophy. And so it easily fits with other beliefs. And I feel like with witchcraft and paganism, it fits quite nicely. Now, there's some parts of it that I'm like, I don't know how it completely fits in, but there's a lot of it that does. You know, one of the things that I've kind of come to trying to argue against is, like, a lot of the witchcraft books and the New Age movement and things, a lot of our stuff is like affirmations have power. So, like, you're supposed to, like, the one that comes to mind is like Louise Hay, and a lot of her, like, things is it feels like you're kind of gaslighting yourself of, like, you don't really acknowledge what you're feeling. You tell yourself what you want to feel. So instead of, you know, like, if you're having a bad day and you're, like, having a really high anxiety day, you would say, I live in perfect calm and peace. Everything is well in my world, right? And then Buddhism, in his example in this book, he talked about how he had, like, twisted his ankle or something while he was going to work. And he was on the subway and he was, like, a teacher or something at a university. So by the time he got there, his ankle was messed up. And he used the mindfulness techniques of Buddhism and acknowledged this is the suffering of, I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but, like, this is the suffering of injury or of pain or something. And just that little thing, and, like, eventually you kind of, like, expand beyond that. But that little example is, like, I love that. We don't really often as witches get to acknowledge the suck of right now. More often than not, we're doing spells and affirmations and all of these things to get beyond those, you know, whatever it is, where Buddhism fully acknowledges that, like, life has suffering. It's not all suffering, but it does exist, and there's needless suffering. And there's like 4 tenets to it, and I've read it a billion times and it still hasn't quite stuck, but it's something like there is needless suffering, there is an end, and like a way to process it, and a way to move on past it, all of that. Or like there is suffering, there's needless suffering, something, there's 4. I can't remember what it is. He talks about it in the book. But I like that. I like the idea of acknowledging that sometimes things suck. And you can just sit in that and just acknowledge that this is part of the human experience of like, there is suffering in the world and it's not great. It really sucks. And again, in a lot of witchcraft things, we just try and kind of bypass that. We don't sit in the uncomfy and just sit and acknowledge that it's like, a lot of the suffering is very universal. Like one of the really common things from Buddhism, one of the main stories you hear quite often, at least a lot of the books I've read so far use this one as the main example, is where this mother had lost her child and went to the Buddha because he's supposed to be like this great magical healer, to be like, can you like revive my child? And he's like, yeah, sure, I have that power. You just gotta bring me a black a black mustard seed. And the only thing is you have to bring it from a house that hasn't been like touched by death. Needless to say, she goes around, everyone's like, oh yeah, sure. And then she has the second thing of like, okay, cool, you got the seed. Also, you haven't had death here, right? And they're like, no, actually, my brother, or my mom, or my grandma, or my son, or whatever. And then by the end of that, she goes back and it's like, I understand the message. That, I love that. And I feel like sometimes we don't always have that in modern paganism. And that's one of the things I really love about Buddhism. But honestly, the two really fit well together. And as a philosophy, like, you could there's the thing of like the inner Buddha, and like Buddhahood exists within you anyways. And as a witch, you could kind of argue it also would apply as like the higher self or the divine self or whatever you want to go with, that always exists within. But yeah, it's like, I like the idea of combining a lot of the Buddhist philosophies into witchcraft and into paganism. I feel like it fits very nicely. It's just another layer of belief that you can add in. And a lot of the things of Buddhism that I personally really like is the idea that you're supposed to try it out for yourself. Buddha said often, not in these exact words, but like, this is what worked for me, go try it, see if it works for you. More often than not, it does. So anyways, I would love to know your thoughts on this, and if you have ever combined Buddhism with Wicca or paganism or witchcraft, how do you combine it? How do you, like, what tenets do you use? What do you not? How does it, you know, mismatch together? I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons. If you would like to support me and get access to exclusive content, on Tuesdays I do other book reviews, and then on Thursdays my audiobook goes up, and then on Saturdays I chit chat about whatever's going on in my craft, going through STOW by Penzac, and then this coming week I will be talking about why magic is failing, and then I also have one coming up for being 15 years as a witch. That one, it's wild. I recorded it, and then it, you know, just scheduling it got pushed back a little bit, but yeah, I've been a witch for 15 years now, so I wanted to talk about it and where I'm at right now. So anyways, if you want to get access to all sorts of stuff, it is always over there on Patreon, linked down below. And here on the main channel, do make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to appease the algorithm gods so you know when I post every single day. Sometimes it's the same time of the day, sometimes it's not. Especially where I'm at right now, where the internet sucks. Like, the upload time at home is usually like 5 minutes or something for a video. Over here it's like 2 to 3 hours. Yup. So it takes a minute. So sometimes it's like, it's ready! Just gotta convince the internet to do its thing one of these days. So, the perks of mountain life versus out in the city. So, anyways, until next time, thank you so much for coming along, and blessed be.